Top 10 lists. That's how you know I've run out of ideas. Dear Internet Wanderer, I would hazard a guess and assume that you play a lot of video games. Don't kid yourself, you're watching my channel. Of course you play games. Have you looked at the mirror lately? And of the myriad of games that you play, I'm willing to bet that some of them are Valve games. And that shouldn't be surprising. Valve games are some of the best that you can play out there. To all the Zoomers in my audience, if you want to skip this long-winded intro, skip to this timestamp to get straight into the top 10 list. Go ahead, go to that timestamp. I totally won't judge you. To those who didn't go to that timestamp, don't you worry, I'm gonna leave a little surprise for those who skipped ahead. Fair warning, it's a moist critical jump scare.
Did I jump scare you?
Now that all the people who still have a functioning attention span are still here, let's get back to the video. There's a reason that when you try to look up on Google or ChatGPT when you're not trying to date the thing, best games of all time, I'm willing to bet you there's gonna be quite a few Valve games on those lists. The games are good and the quality speaks for themselves. So that begs the question, of the many games that Valve has made, what would be classified as the best of the best? The definitive top 10 Valve games. And that's what I want to talk about in this video today. But before I get into that, some disclaimers. This list is going to be highly subjective. Everything here is my opinion and my opinion alone. And on top of that, I also want this video to be a little on the interactive side, because everyone's lists of Valve games will be different. My top 10 will most definitely be different from your top 10, and that's okay. Valve games are so damn good in their own right that no matter how much you remix these games in whatever order you want, more or less you're gonna find at least a handful of people who are going to agree with you. So while everything that I'm going to be listing here is going to be my thoughts and opinions, I also genuinely would love to know what your top 10 Valve games are. Please post them in the comment section below and let's have a little back and forth. So with all that out of the way, what criteria am I going to be judging these games on? Well, actually, there's no real hard set rule. If I'm being completely honest, what I'm valuing these games on is going to be a mix of legacy, impact, staying power, cultural relevance, innovation, and of course, the most important factor, personal bias. And I say that partially as a joke, but also not really. All of us have played Valve games in different points of our gaming lives. And depending on when and where you played them, the importance of that Valve game will be very different. What I'm basically trying to say is, I'm going to try my best to balance this list with a sense of unbiasedness, but also injecting a lot of my own personal biases while making it. Trust me, this will make a lot of sense when I get into the list. You don't need to follow these criteria when making your list. These are just aspects that I personally think are important when making a top 10 list. So without any further ado...
Did I jump scare you? Yeah, I bet I did. You coward. You make me sick. Your weakness is pathetic.
Let's get into it. For my number 10 slot, I thought I'd go with something a little out of the box and give some praise to the only Valve game of its type, that being Half-Life Alyx. This game is the only true AAA VR game on the market today. As it stands right now, no other company can afford to make a AAA VR game while still being profitable. Hell, I would even argue that Valve probably didn't even make a profit when it comes to Half-Life Alyx. There's a lot of things to love, but honestly, do you need me to explain why this needs to be here? The mere fact that a VR game of this high quality exists should be more than enough to put it in the top 10 list of any video game company that makes it. It just so happens that Valve's catalog is so strong that unfortunately, the groundbreaking VR game kinda has to stay at the bottom of the list. And of course, the fact that it's VR, and VR is still very much a niche video game genre that not a lot of people can experience it. I'm convinced that if VR was more accessible and more people could play it, people would consider Half-Life Alyx to be one of the best games that they've ever played, but unfortunately, only a handful of people have been able to play Half-Life Alyx. The visuals are amazing, and so far, Half-Life Alyx is the only Source 2 game that can really claim that it's pushing that engine to its limits. Another thing to note about this game is that it's the scariest game that Valve has ever made. In fact, I actually made a video talking about that topic, linked below in the video description in case you're interested. I won't spoil it, but a lot of people were legitimately shaking in their boots playing this game because of how scary it was.
Who's coming this way? Oh! Boy, shut you little rats!
I hate this. I despise this. Why would they make something like this?
I don't do well with shit like this at all, guys. I really don't. I'm gonna be quiet for pretty much the entirety of this level.
Oh, he actually still has a face, but it's split in half.
This is amazing. This is amazing, but holy f***, I'm actually sweating.
And not to get into spoiler territory, I will say that despite being a prequel to Half-Life 2, Half-Life Alyx did push the Half-Life story forward. I'm gonna leave it at that. And if you're interested to see how people reacted to it, I also made a montage of people's reaction to the ending of Half-Life Alyx. Link also below. I don't think a lot of people are going to be mad at my choice of Half-Life Alyx being my number 10 pick, purely just because people haven't been able to play Half-Life Alyx. So while me placing it here won't be considered controversial, the same can't really be said about my next two picks. And those are...
It's been a long time.
Yeah, for this one I have Portal 2 and Portal 1. Now this part might be the most controversial part of this entire video, so please allow me to explain myself. I must confess that I have quite a bit of bias against the Portal games. Not because that they're bad, no, quite the opposite. The Portal games is probably the best puzzle games that you can find on the market right now. On top of that, this franchise probably contains Valve's most witty dialogue that they've ever written.
This next test applies the principles of momentum to movement through portals. If the laws of physics no longer apply in the future, God help you.
In terms of gameplay and characters, this game really shows that less is more because, comparatively speaking, Portal in terms of gameplay mechanics has very few compared to other Valve games. There's no combat. It relies purely on puzzles, physics, and exploration. The same thing with the characters. There's not a lot of them, but they're all extremely memorable. The reason that I'm kind of biased against Portal is because I've played both games one time. Many years ago, and I just don't have a reason nor a want to play them again. And I fully admit that this is a me thing. I just don't see the need to replay puzzle games once I've finished them. You might argue that, hey, I want to re-experience it for the jokes, for the humor.
Hello.
I hate you so much.
But the thing is, that doesn't work either because it's the same problem. I've heard these jokes before, and unless there's an interesting gameplay hook to make me want to play it again, being funny is not enough of a reason for me to go back. It also doesn't help that its humor is almost entirely dialogue based, not like TF2 where most of the humor is mostly slapstick. Now, I won't deny that the Portal franchise is extremely influential. Of course it is. Puzzle games as a genre is still relatively niche, but there's still quite a few games of them out there. And almost all modern puzzle games can at least find some inspiration from the Portal franchise. Hell, even games that aren't considered puzzle games, just by the mere fact that Portal popularized the Portal mechanics. I'm looking at you, Splitgate, assuming you haven't unreleased yourself again. So I'm sorry if me placing these two games here is going to be very controversial. This is why in the beginning of the video, assuming you didn't skip forward, I really had to stress that this is my list. Because Portal meets a lot of the criteria for the impact, the innovation, the legacy, all that jazz. The only thing that it's lacking is in the personal bias department, which unfortunately does play a heavy part in my personal enjoyment and placement of this franchise. But I'm not so blind as to not put it on the top 10, so that's why it's here. The mere fact that it made the top 10 is already good enough, and I'm fairly confident that a lot of other people are going to put Portal much higher on their personal lists, and honestly, I'm all for it. If you manage to put Portal 1 or 2 in your top 5 or even your top 3s, please let me know in the comment section below because I really would love to know why. Hell, I don't even need to ask why. I already know why. It's an amazing franchise and a lot of people find it funny and engaging. It just unfortunately doesn't work for me. That being said, I've never actually played the co-op mode in Portal 2, so eventually I'm gonna get around to doing that, and maybe my opinion might change. But until I experience it, this ranking will have to remain the way it is. Again, I apologize if my take really pissed off some of the more loyal Portal players out there. That's just my 2 cents. And one last thing before I move on to the next game. Honestly, you can swap the placement of Portal 1 or 2 as my number 8 or number 9 slot. Personally, I would put Portal 1 higher than Portal 2 just because it kind of started this whole franchise and the obsession with puzzle games. But you can swap them around. Doesn't really matter to me. Alright, now that I put Portal on my list, I'm gonna hope that the next game that I'm gonna put on my list isn't gonna piss people off. Who am I kidding? This next one's definitely gonna piss some people off. Okay, I'm sorry. I swear, this is probably the last spicy pick of this entire list. I will explain in more detail when I eventually get to Half-Life 1. I won't spoil its placement on this list, but rest assured, it's up there. So as it stands right now, I can only talk about Half-Life 2 in isolation. Believe me, it is still personally one of my all-time favorite video games. In terms of character and gameplay, it far surpasses Half-Life 1. I would play Half-Life 2 over Half-Life 1 any day of the week. But there are just some things about its predecessor that, in my eyes, according to the vague criteria that I've set upon myself, Half-Life 1 just kinda does better. But again, I will touch on those when I get to Half-Life 1. So, with the time being, as far as Half-Life 2 is concerned, it is still a magnificent video game. This is the game that blue-balled an entire gaming generation with the Episode 2 cliffhanger. In fact, this is also the game that popularized physics as a gameplay mechanic. Physics existed in games before Half-Life 2, but let's be honest, Half-Life 2 is the only game that, hell, even nowadays, has used physics in any meaningful way. I'm sure that there's probably a modern-day game that has used physics to the same level of competency as Half-Life 2, but I still consider Half-Life 2 to be physics the video game. In terms of immersion, Half-Life 2 is also unbeaten, with only Half-Life Alyx being able to edge it out in terms of immersion, but that's kind of cheating given that it's a VR game, and besides, there's ways for you to play Half-Life 2 in VR if you really wanted to. Half-Life 2 is also, in my opinion, the most balanced single-player game that Valve has ever made. It's achieved the perfect blend of puzzles and action and exploration. No other Valve game, and very few, if any, single-player shooter games have managed to accomplish this level of balance with its gameplay mechanics. And on top of that, another aspect that I feel like doesn't get enough praise, or at the very least is an unsung hero of Valve games, is pacing. Pacing is so important to a game's feel to make sure that the player feels right when they're playing the game. I recently saw a let's play of the tutorial and opening level of Hunt Down the Freeman.
The aliens are coming! We've been compromised!
Spit it out, Corporal!
Oh, Colonel. We are so fucked.
For fuck's sake.
I know, it's almost insulting to compare Half-Life 2 to Hunt Down the Freeman, but just hear me out. The opening hours of that game is so monumentally bad that it really made me realize that, holy shit, when a game does pacing badly, it's extremely apparent. But when a game does it flawlessly, people hardly notice. And Half-Life 2 does it perfectly. In fact, pacing is a universal praise that you can give to almost all of Valve's single-player games. And of them all, Half-Life 2 is easily the best paced. Like I said earlier in the video, my placement in this video will make more sense when I get to Half-Life 1. And I won't blame you if you put Half-Life 2 substantially higher on your top 10, that's completely fine. But as it stands right now, and I know this part is also going to be controversial, I will have to put Half-Life 2 on my number 7 spot. Okay, here's to hoping that the rest of this list won't piss people off further. Who am I kidding? The fake Valve fan accusations are getting stronger by the day. Alright, on to the next one.
This could be your phys ed. Cheat on your man, homie. Ah, I tried to sneak through the door, man. Can't make it. Can't make it. The shit's stuck. Out of my way, son! Door stuck! Door stuck! Please! I beg you!
The legacy of esports is a long road. Competitive video games have existed long before I, and probably even you, were born. And many games can be credited with legitimizing esports. However, of the myriad of games that have come and gone, doing their best to make sure that competitive video games could be seen as a legitimate career, no other game has managed to make a bigger impact than the original Counter-Strike. What originally started as a mod for Half-Life, eventually being bought out by Valve and turned into an official Valve product, we have the original, grounded, team-based tactical first-person shooter. And as far as I'm concerned, this game, along with early fighting games like Street Fighter or Tekken and StarCraft 1 probably, these are the games that were responsible for completely legitimizing esports and also responsible for kinda just inventing LAN parties. I'm sure LAN parties have probably existed prior to this, but the difference there is that I was able to play in Counter-Strike 1.6 LAN parties, and those were fun as hell. Counter-Strike kinda has the reputation of being like chess. The game never changes. In fact, if you've never played the original Counter-Strike mod or Counter-Strike 1.6 or whatever version you want to play, odds are if you've only experienced the modern games but went back to play the original, you will be surprised by how much the game has remained the same. Sure, there were some quirks that needed ironing out and some things were removed from the game like the riot shield. You will be missed. But ultimately, the DNA was all there, and every new Counter-Strike game since then has just been a matter of refining that core gameplay loop and design. It really astounds me how much Valve and the Counter-Strike modding team were able to get it right the first time around. If there's one thing that I can give praise to the original Counter-Strike over its more modern iterations, it's just that the original Counter-Strike had the spirit of competitiveness, but also fully embraced its wacky side, because there were a lot of older maps that competitively made absolutely no sense. Those things were basically mazes or just badly designed, but I don't care, they were just fun. Remember the big kitchen room, or the airplane map, or even the one that takes place in a frozen glacier or something like that? So many fun Counter-Strike maps that would never see the light of day in more modern titles just because they were not competitively viable. Which sure, competitive hardcore Counter-Strike players wouldn't want to play them in the first place, but it just sucks now that everyone is either pro or a wannabe pro, and thus the casual spirit of the game just doesn't really exist. It's just unfortunate that the spirit of competitiveness lives on in the modern Counter-Strike games. The casual wacky side, not so much. But hey, I guess Valve has other games to pick up the slack when it comes to humor and comedy and wackiness, huh? I played Counter-Strike 1.6 quite a bit. I have fond memories of all the classic weapon sounds and voice lines. And again, this game was responsible for paving the way for competitive video games to be taken seriously. That legacy alone is enough to put it on this list. Being genuinely fun is just a nice bonus. Alright, moving on to the next entry, we got
I said push their racks, not pause for snacks.
Hey, Gabe?
I'm not wearing underwear. No. Hi, it's Gabe in your lane. It's Gabe Newell.
See, this is how you know this video, while being biased, is not completely biased. Because for those who don't know, Dota 2 is my absolute most played game of all time. Behold how much of my life I have wasted on this stupid video game. It's my most played game and I'm putting it at number 5. The safest place for me to put this somewhat contentious video game. As many of you know, Dota 2 makes up half of Valve's esports juggernaut duo, the other one being of course Counter-Strike Global Offensive, now CS2. I don't care, they're the same game. You cannot convince me otherwise. Dota as a brand has existed long before Valve even owned it, starting off as a mod for Warcraft 3. I was able to play it back then, as a mod. And it's almost surreal seeing what essentially was just a few lines of code tweaked by passionate modders in Warcraft 3 becoming one of the biggest esports video games of all time, boasting the largest prize pool in video game history. And not only that, its predecessor, the original Dota All-Stars, being the origin point for the entire MOBA genre. Out of all of the MOBA descendants, I guess if you want to call it, Dota is the only one that really stayed unique. And by that I mean like every other MOBA basically ended up copying League of Legends. Don't believe me? Almost every other MOBA out there has some form of flash, red and blue jungle buffs, characters that you have to grind to unlock, a built-in recall mechanic, no buybacks, an obsession with 3-hit proc passives, a dedicated jungler role, who always has a version of the summoner spell Smite, and the biggest telltale sign of all of them have the ability to surrender. Dota doesn't. For the most part. There's one exception, but we don't count that. Now, if I had to give a hot take when it comes to competitive games, I will say that out of all different types of competitively played video games out there, across all genres, Dota 2 specifically, in my opinion, is the most complex video game ever made, at least from a knowledge and mechanical sense. There's other games that are more reliant on twitch reflexes. There's other games with more numbers that you have to keep track of course. But I think Dota 2 reaches the perfect balance between those two elements while still maintaining competitive balance. Also, being the second most played game on Steam most definitely helps its placement. Like it or not, numbers don't lie. And having this many players who have been around for almost 14 years, yeah, Dota 2 is kind of a big deal. As the richest Dota 2 player, NoTail once said,
"Well, that's just a weird game. And you can do a million things, and everything can work. So
one last thing before I move on to the next game, I will say that while Dota is a MOBA, and MOBAs are responsible for spawning other MOBAs for the most part, the MOBA genre, and therefore Dota as a whole, is tangentially responsible for the origin of hero shooters. It's not solely responsible, that claim belongs to another Valve game which I will bring up later in the video, but there's definitely the DNA of a MOBA when you're thinking of the abilities that characters in a hero shooter would have. Another thing is that Dota 2 is also responsible for battle passes being invented. That's probably a bad thing, probably, but hey, Dota uses that money well. How do you think we were able to get this massive prize pool, huh? A lot of my viewers who are Valve fans probably have a somewhat negative perception of Dota, and honestly, I don't blame you. Dota 2 is an insanely hard video game to get into, and unless you spent an entire childhood growing up on this thing, like me, I wouldn't blame you nor want you to play this game just because it is an insane time investment that honestly no one should subject themselves to. But that being said, the competitive legacy of this game alone is more than enough for me to put it in the number 5 slot on this list, and the fact that I basically grew up with this game is just the icing on top. But despite all of that, I still have other Valve games that I would actually put above my most played video game of all time. See that? The fake Valve accusations aren't true. We'll see. We still have 4 more entries on this list, so I still might live up to that expectation. Alright, enough rambling. On to the next one.
Wait for official instructions. Wait my ass.
Kill all sons of bitches. That's my official instructions.
See, it's wonderful when things like this work out. The 4th spot rightfully goes to Left 4 Dead 2. Now, when it comes to the Argonax Valve lore, I've played almost all major Valve games. And out of all of them, Left 4 Dead was probably my most played Valve game prior to me being infected by the Dota 2 mind virus. I have a lot of fond memories as a kid running a questionable copy of Left 4 Dead 2 on my dad's work laptop, which could barely run it, by the way. Playing this game at the absolute lowest graphics setting with a frame rate comparable to room temperature in Celsius. But hey, even smooth-brained 11-year-old me knew that this game was amazing. Because this little old game from 2009, even now, has some of the best gore and crowd AI in any video game that I have ever seen. Yes, even me back then knew that this game, running on a laptop which could barely run it, was some next level stuff. Specifically the facial animations. I remember seeing how well the characters move their lips whenever they would say lines and stuff. It blew me away then, and it still blows me away now. Which is also what your mom did to me last night.
That wasn't necessary, but thanks.
Sweet shot.
The talent was guided through a matrix of facial expressions.
Okay, let's do it.
Creating a complete catalog of movements and expressions for each character's face.
That also brings up the rather interesting conundrum that, despite the Left 4 Dead franchise basically spawning an entire subgenre of FPS shooters on its own, by the way, I realize that means shooter, it's really interesting that no other game has been able to come close to surpassing its legacy, that being of co-op shooters. Don't get me wrong, a lot of games tried, even from companies who would claim to be responsible for Left 4 Dead's success. I'm looking at you, Turtle Rock Studios. But many games try their best to mimic what Left 4 Dead did in terms of being a great co-op shooter, and very few, if any, actually even come close to matching its quality. The only one that might come close is Deep Rock Galactic, but Deep Rock Galactic shares DNA with a bunch of other game genres that its success is only tangentially related to Left 4 Dead. and co-op shooters as a whole. It's not really surprising when you ask people what is the best co-op shooter on the market today, they'll still refer to a game from 2009. Also, I just want to highlight these amazing Left 4 Dead 2 animations from back in the day. Holy shit, these things were hilarious.
Okay, everyone get in! That is the scariest fucking thing I've ever seen in my entire life.
Man, Left 4 Dead is just a really good game. It's been a while since I played it. I know for a fact that just by me bringing up Left 4 Dead, at least one of you is going to end up downloading and playing this game again. That's how good this game is. And that is why I don't think it's going to be controversial for me to put this game on the number 4 slot. Okay, I might have lied earlier in the video. My number 3 spot might, depending on who you are and also depending if you don't find my justification to be valid, this next entry might also be a little spicy. And that one is... Counter-Strike Global Offensive, or rather, I'll just shorten this to modern-day Counter-Strike. For the sake of this entire section, I'm just going to refer to it as CSGo. This is essentially the game that solidified esports in the modern day. Other games probably have more high-profile prize pool numbers, other games might have higher attendee numbers, other games might have even higher quality tournaments and players. I don't know, nor do I care. Counter-Strike as a brand has basically turned itself into the face of esports, in my opinion. And all of this is coming from a person who has never watched a competitive Counter-Strike match in his entire life. Counter-Strike as a whole has basically become the sweatiest game that you can play out there. For better and for worse, CSGo has kinda just massively influenced how we handle virtual markets as a whole. You know, things like knife skins and microtransactions and other types of virtual commodities. Which in my opinion is most definitely a bad thing, but hey, it's still influential. Take that how you will. Another thing that most definitely helps CSGo's case for its placement as the number 3 Valve game of all time is, despite how much you may or may not like modern Counter-Strike, there is one thing that you absolutely cannot deny. 1.8 million concurrent players. That's it. I could honestly end this entire section there, but I won't. But 1.8 million. If you like Counter-Strike, great. If you don't, oh well. If you're indifferent, who cares? This number is all you need to justify its placement on this list. And by the way, just like in the Portal games, I am placing this game on the number 3 spot, not because I like Counter-Strike, or rather I'm just indifferent towards it. I guess you could also interpret that as bias against Counter-Strike. And even I'm not so dumb as to not put this game high up on the list. In other words, I'm putting it high on my list despite my personal bias being rather low for modern-day Counter-Strike games. But even I can see where this game absolutely shines. It has amazing gunplay, the incredible teamwork strategies that people have to do, the insane grenade throws and setups that people theorycraft about, and the overall gameplay loop is just top-notch. And even if you're a person who doesn't necessarily care about how this game is played, again, 1.8 million players, that's a lot. Newer FPS games will come and go. There's going to be new Call of Duties, new Battlefields, new Battle Royales all the fucking time. It doesn't matter. Counter-Strike's going to be here and it's going to have millions of people playing it every single hour of every single day. Now, of course, when it comes to the subjective and objective qualities of a video game, numbers aren't the end-all be-all when it comes to games. But they definitely help. And 1.8 million helps a lot. Now, like I said earlier, I kind of consider Counter-Strike 2 to be tangentially related to CSGO, but I'm still going to give this spot to CSGO, because while CS2 can put on the mask that it is basically CSGO, it only gets that because you can't really play CSGO anymore. CS2 has effectively taken its spot, and I think most dedicated Counter-Strike players will agree CS2 is a definite downgrade from CSGO. That being said, during the transition period between CSGO and CS2, it further solidified how Counter-Strike wants to be perceived. I'm specifically talking about the 4 Counter-Strike 2 trailers. Of these 4, 3 of them focus on how the game is changing from CSGO to CS2, and the 4th one almost exclusively talks about the game's legacy as a competitive game. So no matter which way you slice it, the name Counter-Strike has basically become the shorthand for sweaty competitive esports video game. There are other sweaty competitive video games out there, but Counter-Strike's player base probably has the highest number of hardcore, dedicated players out there. I'm not saying all of them are pro or even good. God knows that your teammates in silver aren't anywhere near good. But what I'm saying is that while even the lowest ranks of players might not be good, but by God, they are trying, and they are trying every day, every week, every month, every year. And they've been doing this for a long time. And that type of dedication would not exist if this franchise was not as good as it is. And despite my indifference towards it, it is a damn good franchise. That is why Counter-Strike Global Offensive is in my number 3 spot. If Valve can improve CS2 with further updates down the line and bring it up to feature parity, I might swap it out as the true successor for CSGo, but as it stands right now, CS2 is only being brought up by proxy or nepotism. I don't know what the proper word is. And before we move on to the last two, I just wanted to reiterate that most of this list was made trying to balance out my own bias and games that I'm biased against. Hence why I placed the Portal games where I did. However, if you really wanted my true, completely biased list, all you would have to do is swap out the 2 Portal games for Dota Underlords and Deadlock. I am not kidding. Deadlock, the unfinished game, and Dota Underlords, the failed game. I love these 2 games so damn much that if this list was completely unbiased, they would easily take the spot of the Portal games for me. I've made multiple videos talking about Deadlock and Underlord, and all I'll have to say is I wish Underlords had more time to shine, and I hope Deadlock gets its chance to shine. Although I don't think it needs me to hope for that, because Deadlock seems to be on the road to become the next amazing Valve game. And as a quick honorable mention, Gmod. It's not a Valve game, but for many people it acts as their first gateway to Valve games. I have so many friends who have never played Valve games, but they know what the gravity gun is, the fizz gun is. They know all the character models and such. In fact, Gmod and its community is a lot more influential when it comes to my own personal love and appreciation for Valve games, primarily because of the early YouTube Gmod machinimas, specifically the Gmod Idiot Box series and all the animations made by the late Kitty0706.
Do you remember me? Yes. Let this be a lesson for you.
Back then, I was already aware of Valve games and their characters, but it was these videos that really furthered and deepened my love and appreciation for Valve games. These were really influential on younger me back in the day. In fact, it was actually because of these animations and machinimas that I learned that TF2 was going free to play back in the day.
Freedom! Yes! Yes!
Specifically because of a Gmod Idiot Box episode. That was actually the reason that I made my Steam account, and it was all thanks to Das Bullshit. It's funny how things like that just kind of work out, huh? I hope that Valve really polishes up the Source 2 engine rather soon, so that way they can make like the Gmod 2 and the Source engine 2. That would be really fucking cool, wouldn't it? But enough yapping, on to the last 2 games on my list.
I see the briefcase is safe.
Safe and
Yeah,
sound.
it is.
Yeah.
Tell me, did anyone happen to kill a
Black Scottish Cyclops. They got more
Blokes were bludgeoning their wife to death with a golf trophy. Professionals have
practical problems. For instance,
your mother?
What the? Wait,
Indeed. And now he's here to
beat the crap out of every single one.
Just like with Left 4 Dead being in the number 4 spot, TF2 is on my number 2 slot. And this one should not be a surprise even in the slightest. TF2, without a shadow of a doubt, in my opinion, and I'm sure you will agree with me, dear internet viewer, this is probably the funniest game of all time.
This is a bucket.
Dear God.
There's more.
No.
And not just that, TF2 changed class-based shooters as a genre forever. This game is single-handedly responsible for the hero shooter genre as a whole. And not just that, TF2 with its Meet the Team shorts also kinda invented personality-driven marketing for games in general. So many games have marketing that is so reminiscent of these cinematics, it's ridiculous. And the impact that TF2 has extends much further than just other video game companies, because there's entire genres of memes completely based around TF2. I bet you right now there are millions of people right now on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, you name it. They're out there using the nope sound effect.
Nope.
And I guarantee you, they have no idea that that's from TF2, but the mere fact that they're using it is just spreading the TF2 mind virus, because TF2 is everywhere. From the research that I conducted in some of my older videos, I have concluded that Team Fortress 2 is, right now, the longest running live service FPS that still has an active player base. The only other FPS that might come close, that hasn't gotten a new game or a new iteration, is Crossfire, but that's only really popular in niche corners of Asia. TF2 has been around since 2007, and it really shows no sign of ever stopping. If anything, the memes and its community is growing larger year after year. It's ridiculous. In fact, if I may be so bold to say another controversial statement, I would actually say that TF2, right now, in the year of our Lord 2025, is more relevant than many other big gaming franchises. What game franchises would I say that TF2 is bigger than right now? Diablo.
Do you guys not have phones? Yeah.
Monster Hunter, Borderlands, Overwatch, Destiny, Quake, Assassin's Creed, Metal Gear, and maybe even Zelda.
Sorry, Link. I can't give credit. Come back when you're a little, richer.
These game franchises might have sold more than TF2. These other game franchises might be more recognizable to the day-to-day people who aren't terminally online like you or I, but I assure you, more people in the world have been exposed to TF2 or TF2 related media and they don't even realize it. The TF2 mind virus is real, and as long as people keep spreading TF2 memes like the nope sound effect, it's gonna keep spreading. The mere fact that TF2 is extremely funny and extremely prevalent around the world, that's already a good enough reason for me to put it in the number 2 slot. But TF2 is also an extremely fun and well-made video game.
Yeah, that seems about right.
That's just the icing on top. In fact, I've self-plugged myself so often in this video I'm actually turning gay. I made a video a month ago talking about why TF2's weapons are the best in video games. Go watch it if you haven't already. It's way better than this video. I put way more effort into that one. Honestly, if you've made it this far into the video, I salute you. I'm just starting to ramble. I'm literally running out of talking points. I'm actively writing this script right now as we speak. Nowadays, TF2's player count might not be as big as Dota or Counter-Strike, but that's okay. TF2 is so recognizable, it's become basically a meme institution in of itself.
You are dead. I'm dead.
And the fact that it's also an extremely fun, well-made game on its own just goes to show that this game truly is the heart of all Valve games. Valve might have made games that are more successful, but without TF2, I feel like Valve's catalog of games would be a lot more dull without it.
Could I have some more?
And that is why TF2 is my number 2 Valve game of all time. And then I'll just cut straight to the chase. You already know it's going to be my number 1 slot, and that is the original Half-Life.
Good morning, and welcome to the Black Mesa Transit System. This automated train is provided for the security and convenience of the Black Mesa Research Facility personnel.
Half-Life 1 changed the entire FPS genre forever. This is the game that is basically responsible for ending boomer shooters, and is also responsible for ushering in the era of modern-day FPS games. Now, the reason why I put Half-Life 1 all the way up here and Half-Life 2 all the way down there is not because Half-Life 2 is a worse game than Half-Life 1. No. It's purely just because the lineage and legacy of Half-Life 1, in my opinion, is far grander than Half-Life 2. More games can claim that they were inspired by Half-Life 1 than they could Half-Life 2. Half-Life 2 was very much set on physics as its main selling point, but Half-Life 1's main selling point was just being new, modern, ushering in a new era of FPS games. In other words, Half-Life 1 is more foundational to the genre than Half-Life 2, and that's pretty much the gist of it. They're both pillars of gaming, it just so happens that Half-Life 1 is a bigger, more substantial pillar than Half-Life 2. Even though, personally, I would vastly prefer playing Half-Life 2 over Half-Life 1. Not to say that Half-Life 1 doesn't have some things that I prefer over Half-Life 2. Case in point, the setting. I actually really like Black Mesa as a setting compared to City 17. In fact, I recently did a Let's Play of Black Mesa, the video game, not the setting, but it also takes place in Black Mesa, so, you know, Not exactly the same, but basically the same. And the fact that the entire game takes place in essentially what is one gigantic facility, it really has this sense of cohesion that Half-Life 2 doesn't necessarily have. Not to say that Half-Life 2 is worse off because of that, no. Half-Life 2 is trying to tell a different story of how the Earth as a whole is suffering under the Combine Empire, and naturally if they want to show that, they have to show other settings than just one city. I'm just saying that as a setting, I think Black Mesa is more interesting than City 17 and its surrounding areas. And while Half-Life 1 isn't as memeable as TF2, it's still pretty damn close.
Gordon, you lousy motherfucker. Get your dork ass down to the test chamber or else I will shove the sample up your ass. Stop fucking with the microwave.
There's a rather substantial amount of fan-made animations, machinimas, skits, all based around Half-Life 1 in Black Mesa.
I don't know what you're doing. Where is the helmet? Oh, it doesn't have one. Don't worry, you've done extensive testing. It's perfectly safe. No, that's like 90% safe at most.
So after you watch this video, and thanks for watching this far by the way, do yourself a favor and go ahead and watch these other videos and video series like Freeman's Mind.
The time is 8:47
Shit!
a.m.
I didn't know I was that
Good
late.
topside.
Half-Life VR, but the AI is self-aware.
Yeah, he's telling me that you're not allowed in here.
I don't have a passport. I have my Black Mesa ID.
Look at his fists, they're bald.
Demo Mesa.
Oh, that's gay. Brilliant.
And the rather shocking amount of Half-Life 1 YouTube shorts that just kinda infested my YouTube shorts feed for a while.
Last chance to look at me, Hector. This should make you feel better.
These are great, by the way. I love watching these things. There's just something about Half-Life 1 that just strikes a chord in the old lovable game aspect that just people really enjoy. And if you're one of those Zoomers who can't bring themselves to play this game because Lamau, graphics old, therefore game bad, the fan-made remake Black Mesa is a great alternative. If I might insert another hot take in this already spicy video, I actually vastly prefer playing Black Mesa over Half-Life 1. But honestly, if you've never played any of the Half-Life games, and if you're one who actually cares about the legacy of a video game franchise, then Half-Life 1 into Half-Life 2 is the proper way to go about it. And speaking of Half-Life 2, there's no friendly fire in Half-Life 2, so 0 out of 10. I've never actually asked this question, but I get the impression that there is quite a bit of healthy debate between players who prefer Half-Life 1 and Half-Life 2. Not just from a gameplay perspective, but just as a whole, overall. And I guess this is the perfect time to refer to you guys, the viewers, for making it this far into this rambly-ass unstructured video. This is my placement. Behold, it's dog shit, I know. And I won't eat up any more of your time, so please, let me know which of these do you agree with the most and which ones do you not agree with. And finally, to cap this entire video off, 2 questions for you. What is your top 10 list? Please write them in the comment section below with your reasonings. And number 2, between Half-Life 1 and Half-Life 2, which one do you prefer more and why? That's it. Alright, I can already sense that the viewer retention is dropping really low. I'm gonna end the video here. Thanks for watching, Internet Wanderer. Do the YouTube things.